Good.
Good.
That's a nice artwork for Lou you got on there, Chris.
Like that?
Go, Greg.
5:05.
All right, today is Wednesday, May 29th. It's 5:05. Sorry for starting the meeting a little bit late. This is the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee. So I'm here. This is Councilmember Walsh Russo. Are you here?
I'm
You
here.
are here. And Councilmember Mattson
Here.
is here. Accepting on the minutes. Did anybody see any changes that needed to be done? Everybody, okay, accepted the minutes. All right, topic A, Wilbur Park projects. Who wants to take this one?
I can start if you'd like. So part of the ARPA projects included installation of the basketball court up on Upper Wilbur. We redid the basketball court paving last year, installed new basketball poles and backboards. We relocated from Lower Wilbur to Upper Wilbur, and we just recently had the courts lined. So that project is completed. I don't have the total in front of me, or I believe it's around $25,000. There's another $25,000 devoted to providing shade for the playgrounds. We're planning on purchasing a shade structure and installing the shade structure ourselves. I believe the materials alone are close to $25,000. Those are the two projects. This is from the county ARPA, Greg?
Yeah, we had 50,000 from the county's ARPA allotment that they granted to the city for these projects.
Okay, that's cool.
And for those of us that are new, would you mind just telling me what ARPA stands for?
American Reinvestment and Recovery.
Oh, this is the federal.
Recovery plan. You threw me off.
Sorry.
That's the old one, I forget.
American
Rescue Plan.
Rescue Plan.
Okay, sorry.
So this is the federal.
Too many acronyms.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a federal-
It wasn't a quiz.
It's okay.
Federal
Didn't
assistance
mean.
directly to municipalities.
Great.
COVID.
Okay, I had an idea. Okay, just wanted to confirm. Thank you so much. Sorry to put you on the
It's
spot.
okay.
I didn't mean to.
And then Wilbur Pool parking lot improvements. We've been looking into, did everyone receive the drawings part of the packet?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we're looking to expand the parking down there. I know that handicap accessibility is difficult there. Right now, they have to drive down that short, narrow driveway to gain handicap accessibility. So we were thinking of expanding the parking lot, providing more parking in that area. To do that would require taking down about a dozen trees, looking at maybe relocating the overhead electric to underground, and just making it a little bit more accessible. It's all about accessibility and access to the building there. So we don't have funding in the budget for this year. It's just planning phase, looking to do this maybe next year, if everyone's on board.
You also gonna get an estimate of how much to heat that pool? We talked about that a couple of times.
I have not done that recently, but I can, if it's something you guys would like. Okay.
I would,
Great idea.
Heating by like solar cover, or heating by like
whatever
mechanical
makes it so
means?
the kids don't come out shivery. The best way of doing it. I don't,
Okay.
if you wanna try solar cover first to see how that works,
Have we ever looked into that, Greg?
I don't think so. No, solar cover, I think maybe a few years ago, there was discussion at the Parks and Rec Commission about heating heater.
Have you ever looked into a heater?
I haven't.
Okay. We can do that.
just
Other,
I have a question.
The blue part here, what, does this indicate how the cars will move? Is that what that is?
Yeah. The rendering here is
the
the.
blue? Yes, that would be the terrain movements for the vehicle.
And where would the trees be that you took down?
So there are trees in this grass area here, and there's trees here. The trees in those areas would have to come down.
Okay, I know what that is, yeah. It's too bad.
Just a quick question. What would the total increase to for parking? It's hard to, it's very difficult to kind of get a sense of how many spots there are currently
Sure.
versus what the increase would be.
This will increase
about 10?
Say about 22 spots increased,
Oh, wow.
yeah, additional spots.
Okay.
Parking down there is a bit difficult. Sometimes people have to park in the overflow spot down by the old basketball court. Just figured it'd be a little nicer to provide closer accessibility to the bathhouse.
Yeah,
I think if we wanna get our usage up, I think that's a worthwhile. I agree.
Should I move forward then with the current layout and obtain pricing on it?
I'm in favor.
may I just
Go ahead.
interject just for a moment? What I've noticed, just being on this committee, we talk a lot about parking and a lot about cars. And as someone who uses Wilbur Park daily, I'm just curious about, in addition to the increase in parking, if we've given thought about creating new pedestrian and or bike alternative routes or ways that people can have more accessibility if they're not in a car to the pool and other parts of Wilbur Park. It's not entirely pedestrian friendly in that area by the pool and in that kind of lower Wilbur area. And so I'm just curious if there's been any sort of like thinking about or rethinking about pedestrian versus car traffic.
There is a, in the Wilbur Park plan, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, a plan for a trail that runs parallel with the stream from the lower bridge to behind, comes out behind the pool.
Yeah, I think that's kind of improving the trail footpath that's there now. Whether it's that, I guess that could be made accessible, it's not accessible now, as far as ADA standards are concerned.
Right.
I think the idea was stone dust there,
Yes, Stone Dust Trail.
which can be made to be accessible, although just given a grade there, decent work. That is identified in the plan.
And then the path, the road into Wilbur Park from Spruce, is it possible to have that more pedestrian friendly? I mean, in other words, has there been any discussion about
When you say
creating a-
pedestrian friendly, do you mean
creating a
like
sidewalk?
sidewalks?
yes? For example?
Not, I don't believe it was discussed in the Wilbur Park plan, was it, Greg?
I don't believe so, no, that wasn't on their plan. That's something we can discuss.
Yes.
Right now, it's kind of, obviously the pavement is used by pedestrians and bikes as well as cars.
Yes.
Not aware of any incidents there or, car pedestrian interactions.
People go slow, it seems. I mean, this is just all anecdotal, so. But there does seem to be, sort of some kind of peace between cars and people in that part of the park. But I'm just curious, it's not, there's always this sort of dynamic where the pedestrians have to make way for the cars in the summertime. So I'm just wondering if there's a way around that pedestrians can feel more welcome to walk into the pool area.
Sure, I mean, if that's a priority that's important to the council, we can certainly look at that.
Okay.
So should I table the parking lot and focus on the sidewalks?
Is it an either or?
I don't think we have the funding to do both. It's quite expensive.
What did you have in mind for the pedestrians, like a paved,
A sidewalk.
so would it be a concrete sidewalk, or would it be just a widening with like stripes or something to say this is for pedestrians?
A designated area for pedestrians to walk. So your question is whether or not it's part of the road or if it's
Right.
elevated and separate,
Mm-hmm.
sort of its own elevated sidewalk? Yeah, I would be thinking about the latter. An elevated portion where
Mm-hmm.
you can clearly
So you'd be looking
not
at-
drive.
So like a curb
Exactly, yeah.
and sidewalk
Yeah.
combination?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to put that forward for discussion as a possibility, because we talk a lot about cars, but not a lot about other
Is
ways
that something we could maybe have the Park and Recs committee look
to
at,
have a discussion about.
about the best make that, with pedestrian and with their overall, what they're looking at for a plan?
Yeah.
But what do you feel about the parking lot? I mean, I mean, the parking lot needs to have something done to it anyway, because it's
It's
all
it's
part
It's a
of
mess. Yeah, it's a mess,
so.
right. It needs improvement, yes.
would suggest that the discussion about pedestrian improvements versus vehicular improvements, and whether that's in the context of parks or elsewhere, could be part of the strategic planning discussion. That would, I think that discussion and prioritization would kind of inform the budget for 2025. I think you're talking about this as a 2025 budget
Yes.
item.
Yeah.
So through that process, that'll give Chris a better idea which one to focus on, which one to include in budget requests. Given that obviously we have limited
I think you're
funds.
gonna have to have numbers though.
Yeah.
Well, I think the prioritization of, do we set pedestrians in front or that sort of
Well, it
level?
might have to be a combination project, it might be not either or, it might be, we're gonna invest it, it's gotta be simultaneous.
In
I
which
think
case,
that's
in
what
which
the
case
council
we,
has to do that.
in which case we have to talk about, what is the most cost effective way to do it. Certainly a raised curb and a sidewalk is the most expensive way to do pedestrian improvements, which that's just a consideration that we'll have to look.
And at the same time, it's not, the parking lot itself is not in great shape, so it needs improvement.
As a resident and to being part of the police department for as long as I have been, there's definitely conflict with pedestrians on that roadway, and I think that a sidewalk would be twofold, because it would give the ADA compliance, right, and make it more handicap accessible, as well as eliminating some of the conflict with pedestrian traffic. So I think that that's probably, because it seems to have dual benefit. Just my 2 cents.
How far into the park would we go with the sidewalk? Like to the, past the pool, stop at the pool?
Obviously, there are a lot of people that walk through the park all the way to the high school. The loop around the pavilion, is that necessary as a vehicular path at all? It's really just, it's used to pull around and turn around. Could that be made pedestrian bikeway and save on some pavement? Or does it work fine as it is with the low volume up there? There's a lot of questions, there's different ways to look at it.
So maybe the best thing to do would be let the Parks and Rec kind of do their thing with it and.
As to what the best solution is, or to whether to prioritize pedestrian bikes?
What they envision for that park and those kind of, the walking and the pedestrian, and then come up with the on-year plan and bring it back.
Okay.
And then they can give us what they think a priority might be, if we're gonna go forward with it and put it in the budget, what their priority be, would it be pedestrian first, would it be parking, would it be simultaneous? I think the parks, let the Park and Rec Committee, and then just kick it back.
Okay.
I think that'd be the best.
Is there data available on pedestrian use in the park, in terms of that?
I don't believe we have any traffic counts for vehicles either in the park that I'm aware of.
That it? Chris, y'all know that?
Yep.
Okay. D Street parking lot security cameras.
I'm a fan. You know, Main Street, prior to the camera installations on Main Street, we were having sometimes upwards of 4 windows broken on businesses a weekend. And since the installation of cameras and the lighting, we have done. And I think as a deterrent, as an investigative measure, I think that they're a valuable undertaking. I think that all the city parking lots should have, I think, even if we could put them up all over the downtown area, I would love that. You know, it's a matter of making a determination as to where the best yield, most efficient locations for the cameras would go. But that is one of our most valuable resources, and for those of you who may not know, the arson murder from 2018 was solved using cameras that were almost all privately owned right in that area. But having city-owned cameras in that area would have expedited the process significantly. So you're not gonna, all I can do is say, they're a great idea, they're scalable, we can put in 1, we can put in 30. It's just a matter of where they go and what the best bang for the buck is gonna be.
So have you kind of scoped it out a little bit, know how many cameras you want there, or worked with a company yet, or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the city administrator, the lieutenant, and I walked through that area, and I think, the entire area could be covered with between 4 and 6 cameras. And that's the rear portion of the D Street lot building itself, as well as the D Street parking lot by the YMCA, and all the entrance and egress points.
How much would that cost?
That I don't know off the top of my head. They're not inexpensive.
I think we're looking at 50, I think we talked about this last time, we're looking at about $50,000 for the Niwa Park. And that included 4 270-degree cameras and 1, I think, 180-degree straight view camera. Plus all the technology required to get it back to the police department.
And how would you do that?
They have servers and direct digital. I'm not an expert on it. I rely on the camera company to tell us how they do that.
They use what basically is like a microwave router.
Yeah.
And it sends a signal back to a receiver, which is then sent to the station.
So you'd need some sort of a tower for the microwave dish.
I'm pretty sure that they're using
I think so. Yeah, I don't think it'd be a tower. I think it's just a simple, small.
You're not doing something, but obviously running a light pole itself,
Yes.
that would have to be definitely figured out.
Ours at work right on the light pole as you come into the thing, and then it shoots it to the nearest Wi-Fi,
Okay.
into the building, nearest building thing.
And there's already a good bit of infrastructure downtown. I think they could probably piggyback it off of some of the other cameras that are on the system.
So what's the next step that you're looking for?
I had mentioned that, you know, I walk through there every day, you know, I'm just nosy. And earlier I had noticed what appeared to be drug dealing, but I haven't seen anything in like 2 months. And I had suggested maybe parking an unused police vehicle there with not a real, you know, a camera, but on the dashboard, but not one that's functioning, just make it look like it's a camera there. And I don't even know if you need that now, because I don't think there's been any problems that I'm aware of in the last month and a half, 2 months. Is that accurate?
I'd have to take a look at what incidents that we've had in that area, but I would say there's definitely been some instances there. Again, this is will be a scalable system. And it really is a determination as to how much. We could probably do a lot with 2, right? And it provides not only a deterrent effect, but it's an investigative measure also. So, and we don't have a problem someplace until we do. And then we have to look for options as to how we'll be able to solve whatever happens historically. And a lot of times it's a lot more legwork. This ends up saving us a significant amount of time. We've had cars stolen from that lot. We've had assaults in that lot. This year we had an assault, a felony assault in that parking lot.
Okay.
You know, there's
The
things
car was
happen all
stolen
over.
from the back area or the other, you know, behind the Deep Street
Over
lot?
by the YMCA.
Oh, so the other part of the
Right.
lot.
Yeah.
When did that happen? You know?
I'd have to look. I'm just telling you.
This year.
This year or last, the assault definitely happened this year.
And the reference that the murder, what
That was
was it?
from 2018.
And was that the one in the alleyway?
No,
Where was that?
that was on Walling Avenue, Walling Avenue.
I myself called in a domestic dispute there in the last month
At Deep Street?
at the D Street lot on the YMCA side, and I had my vehicle struck twice in there.
So, you know, for a hit and run accident, they would be great, because we have a description of the vehicle, potentially even a license plate.
Mhm.
So, you back up a little bit here, you said you already been working with a company with this?
Adirondack Cabling's been the company that's done the installs, in its entirety for this whole new system that we're on.
And this is not in the budget, right? So, are you looking for, try to get this in for next budget, or are you trying to look for assistance to the council for?
We were asked to look into this. We didn't propose it initially, but I would think it'd be something, depends on the council's priority. Is this something that you see as a need right now? Is this something that you see as something we should consider in the 2025 budget? Strategic plan and all that?
I think we're gonna introduce a lot in 2025 budget, take a lot right back out. I'm just trying to figure out, this might go hand in hand with another project that I wanna talk about before the chief leaves. I wanna talk about some type of broadcasting system in Newell Park for all the big events that we have in there. For, obviously, 4th of July is a big one I can think of, where we have multiple, back when I was working with law enforcement here, I remember listening to the frequency all the time, and there's no good way of trying to reconnect a lost child with their parent.
Yeah, so one of the issues that we've had down there historically is, and this kind of came up during the Memorial Day ceremony, where we weren't able to hear the speakers. And I got to thinking about the park as a whole. It's very difficult for us to be able to reach out and tell people that we've got an issue someplace. There's no way to immediately reach out and tell people that they need to move away from something, or it would be nice for 4th of July when we try to clear the area where they tape off for the fireworks. If we had a way to broadcast that, rather than have 4 people minimum go over and actually physically remove them one at a time, be much more efficient for us to say, please stay out of the taped off area. You know, and if we have missing children, which happens every single year, you know, we would be able to poll and just say, you know, like at a supermarket, right? Could Mr. Brown come to the register? You know, we have something valuable that belongs to you know, something of that nature. But we currently don't have a PA system that's powerful enough to broadcast that message in a big enough area where we'd be able to get people's attention.
But the stage has a big PA system for those events, doesn't it?
It's hard to move that travel trailer if we've got something going on Main Street or.
No, I mean, like for 4th of July,
We've tried to use that in the past, yeah. And it has worked, but, you know, again, having that as an option for us, not just for 4th of July, but if we have a Main Street event, or if we have another kind of event in the park, you know, even just road races where people are running in the park or someplace else, it would just give us a better avenue to communicate with a crowd of people.
What do you, Cindy, what are you talking about, like having speakers on trees or poles and that kind of thing?
Portable unit.
Oh, portable, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes more sense. You know, I've said in the past, the trouble with getting old is every time you hear something, it reminds you of something that happened in the past. When I was about 5 years old, I got lost at LaGuardia Airport, which, not LaGuardia, at Idlewild Airport, now known as Kennedy Airport. And I was a little boy and I was crying, and this very nice man came up and comforted me and found my parents. And I was very disappointed with my parents' reaction. They were all excited about the man and not me. And it turns out it was Danny Kaye, the entertainer and movie star.
I don't know who that is. But, so, I mean, I'm bringing that up because I think Newell Park is generally the park that we use for all big events. We're trying to get all the road races in there, we're trying to get, so we're not putting a lot of burden on our staff. Give them the resources that they need to get down in there. So, you know, I don't know, like, the next step with this, Greg, is I see 3 of our department heads sitting here. Is there any way that maybe you and our 3 department heads here that are more technologically better than I am, can maybe discuss best options for there and come back with some numbers and,
To this committee,
yeah.
with some numbers to purchase this in the 2024 budget.
The best way of doing it. What we really need, whether it's a mobile unit or on a fixed unit, and how we can get it, I would say you'd wanna probably tie it into the baseball. Have an option to tie into the baseball if it's a true emergency. Possibly. But I think that's me getting way too down in the weeds. I think that's why we have our staff. Cause my thing would be is I think maybe this committee, we could discuss this, cause this might be a better quality of life use of some funding and maybe something that we should try to figure out if we can figure out how to spend some money on it this year. For, you know,
Okay. We can look into that.
Are you also thinking in terms of summer 2024, that there's events that would need this kind of technology, or?
yeah, I mean, the overall, I'm surprised if we get something fast. I don't think we'll get it there by the summer,
Yeah.
but I mean, just knowing the prices and how this stuff moves from doing it up at work, if we could at least come up with, this is the plan we want, this is what we get. If we can do it this, it may not get installed until next year. But, you know, like typically during the fall, people start slowing down more because everybody's fall forming for the schools and stuff like that. That, you know, this might be something we could have and have up ready for.
I think Chief Knapp would wanna weigh in on that potentially also.
Yes. Thank you. I was thinking that, but.
So you're proposing this as an ongoing discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let our, you know, Chris and Carrie and Greg and Brian get together and really think about what's really needed.
Yeah,
So,
it wouldn't seem to me that this would be isolated to just, let's say, public safety as a whole. It could have applications outside of the public safety building.
Yeah.
We have something similar on Main Street, the speaker system on Main Street, yeah,
That's what I was thinking, yeah,
you can,
Kind of tied in there, isn't
and that's a
do
mobile.
something very similar,
mobile unit that we can.
attach it to our utility poles.
Price in this,
Yeah, when they come up with what they want and how much they think, you know. But we probably won't have anything until closer to the end of the year, I would think. I don't know how quick I don't know, like.
This is gonna require contacting vendors, having them come out, look at the sites, and then proposing something that works for our needs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking an installation, absolutely, but if we're talking a portable unit or something that was more along the line of a 360-degree megaphone, I think that's something commercially available. I just don't know what,
I think the portable one is a better idea because it's more versatile.
well, it's not restricting us to just Newa Park, that's for
Right,
sure.
exactly. Yeah, it could be anywhere in the city.
Well, that's why I let them kind of sit down and make what they think is the best thing. If it's something citywide they want to go with, I just want to get the conversation going and come up with something that, because I think it's, just looking at kind of how the world's going and stuff like that, I think we need something, you know? So, then whatever incident we get, I mean, I remember, if you wanna talk about stories way back in the day, I remember a police car going up and down River Street because they're doing a major drill on their loudspeaker, you know?
You still have
So, I mean, not probably the best way to advertise, it's just a drill, but just something, you know, and like I said, I really cringe every 4th of July. I mean, I'm not in the business anymore, but the amount of people, stuff to get down there, and if you did have something, how do you get it out? You know, and if you ever do start concerts in the park again, you know, like the big names, like, you know, that we used to have, or like O Fest, that they decide they're coming off the hill at some point in time again, or something like that, I just think it's a necessary thing that we need, so. So I appreciate you allowing us to have that type of.
So just to be clear, when you talk about end of the year, so are we talking about 2025 budget consideration? for this as opposed to work, this is now a top priority, we're gonna set other projects aside and work on it immediately. 2025 budget goal, am I understanding that correct?
I mean, I'm only one vote, but I would like to have this as a priority to get it done.
I wonder about linking it also to emergency planning, that this is part of, as you described, an emergency response for, large scale events.
Right, I see this as a public safety, emergency, preparedness, emergency management sort of expenditure and tool. So if it were considered in the overall larger context of emergency management, where does this fall? Because I don't know, we're not talking about everything emergency management right now, there are other priorities that may be higher than this, maybe not. So if we're talking about what is the priority, I think that is a bigger conversation, and this might be something that falls in there. But I'm not sure that I want to direct staff to divert their attention and resources to this project without having a bigger conversation about what other, is this our priority when it comes to emergency management needs right now? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna kind of disagree with you, Greg. I think this is, you don't get any bigger than the amount of people that we're trying to pull into Oleana. If you're gonna start trying to really wanna pull these people into Oleana, you better have this plan in first before you start getting all these people in here, and then you're way behind the 8 ball, and then your press goes the opposite way, where they weren't prepared, this is what happened, don't go to that city, they don't care. You know, I mean, I'm gonna really strongly disagree with you, Greg. I think, to me, this is a priority that needs to be.
I didn't get an opinion, Scott, I just suggested that I would want to have a discussion with our team to see what are the priorities. But if this committee is instructing me that this is a priority, then we can consider moving forward. I do think the council as a whole might want to weigh in on that as well, it's going to be a budget.
Well, that's what we sit there, that's why we have the committees to start this, and we rely on the committees to start the process. And we kind of made that clear, I think, in several council meetings, that we believe in the committee process.
So it's our recommendation as a committee that this should be a priority.
Yep.
Right, we could all agree on that. And moving forward, if we could make that central to what our committee is saying is necessary for the
I
fire.
don't know how cost prohibitive this would be, and I've got some, funding in place because we're working on communications for the department, which seems to be, that would be a good fit. Depending on what kind of assistance that I get with that from other sources this year, that may be something as simple as it's already in the budget, I don't know yet. So, but I think it's something that we should just keep in discussion. I'm sure that the city administrator will put it on the to-do list, and we'll be able to circle back to that throughout the year.
Which is fine, I just want some type of updates coming that you guys are working on, because to me, I think this is, fits into the overall picture of what we're trying to accomplish as a city, trying to give resources to the people that need them.
If we talk about 4th of July specifically, this would be a redundancy because we do have the grandstand, like was mentioned, and we use that for polling people also. But for other events that aren't involving music and do have crowds, that would be a much more needed item in that regard. So yeah, we could take a look at what that's gonna cost. We have no idea what it would cost, or we have no idea also, you know, from the emergency management standpoint, as far as Chief Knapp goes, I think he really needs to weigh in on this also.
So you're talking about the big megaphone kind of thing? Is that what, you're talking about the audio projecting out to the crowd? What are you talking about? Yeah.
I'm talking about having some type of system up that we can reach the most amount of people in that park when you start getting 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 people on major events that we're doing down there.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm talking about safety, I'm talking about being ahead of the ball, I'm talking about being proactive, which we don't always get a chance to do. I'm talking about safety, I'm talking, it can go for a variety of things. That's why I'm asking our staff who are down in the parks, or in the emergency services, and they're doing that stuff to really look into this and come out with the best system that they can come out with. Let's just do it right from the get-go. That's what I'm saying.
And I wonder also if, similar to the pedestrian question around walking in the parks, if this is also a question for the Parks and Rec Committee, or a topic that they could also address as a potential priority for them. Wouldn't hurt.
I don't think anything hurts, I don't think having conversations hurt amongst a lot of people. You know?
If I may circle back,
You can, sure.
Okay. Because we started talking about a different kind of technology for Neola Park.
Mhm.
We started talking about Deep Street
Yep.
security cameras. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear about what the chief is recommending, that security cameras could be as few as 2. Was that what you
Well, I
were
mean,
putting forward as a recommendation?
we could start with none, I mean,
Uh-huh.
you know, it could be as few as 0 or as many, I guess, you know, if you have a arm-mounted, 360-degree camera somewhere in the middle of the parking lot, you know, you would get at least some version of everyone coming and going in that field of vision. The more that you have, because the way that the cameras work, if you have very high resolution, you have very low frame rates. So, you know, you kind of have to balance that, and that's where the experts come in with this, because you start talking high resolution, high frame rates, then you're talking large storage capacity requirements. So, you know, lower resolution, you need to have more of them placed throughout the lot, and you'd be able to have more footage for longer. So it's really a matter of talking with the experts to see what they would recommend and where they would recommend placement points. The one thing I'm not is a AV guy, so I would have to talk with the people that do this for a living.
Currently, we have 90 days of storage with all the cameras we have. The more cameras we add, the less storage we're gonna have with our current system.
So with, you see, so I'm assuming that when this was brought up, it was if we needed them, if we found a need to put in the budget, is that how you understood that when it came up?
Yeah, I think the mayor initially brought this up as something to consider, just as a discussion item with the council.
So what I would recommend is, we need to know if you need to upgrade the whole system, like if you're gonna start losing storage, do you need to get more, or do you want, like if
I think
5 cameras is a good starting point, is it 2 cameras is a good starting point, how much money are we looking that we really need? I mean, I'm on board with getting cameras.
I think there's other considerations to be made there as well, because currently we've got cameras from the parking garage that are offline. And those are slated to go back up with the new parking lot construction.
And then,
And then some
quite a few more.
for the transit hub. You know, so I think it's a matter of we just need to take this incrementally over time, would be my recommendation, and see where it goes. But I think that the conversation needs to stay in the forefront of people's minds. While we move there, I think the construction for that, clearly it's underway. You know, if we put those in now, we would want to at least know the plan. I would say we'd have to talk to them about what the plan is as it exists for the transit hub in that parking lot, with the camera specs that we're looking at, and then see how that's going to look if we were to add X number of cameras at D Street lofts or D Street lot.
Yes, yeah, I think we need a comprehensive look at our whole system that we got.
I think as the system stands now, it's very scalable. 90 days is a significant time period, and that's based on what we have now. So if we doubled that, if we doubled the amount of cameras that we have now, using logic, we would have 45 days of storage, which is still a fair amount of storage. So I think the anticipation for that is that we wanted to make sure we had enough storage space. which I think is a very wise thing to do, because there's other ways to incorporate, there's the potential also for, correct me if I'm wrong, private business owners, if they wanted to get the Avigilon system, they would be able to loop into our system also.
That's correct.
So, you know, having that as an option with people that if they wanted to put a camera in and loop it back to us, we would be able to see that also. Not that that program is starting, nobody has time to do that, but I think we're looking far enough forward to recognize that, you know, that's likelihood. The potential is there, obviously. The cameras that are gonna go in on Market Street need to have space so that we can use them. And I think that's, I don't know if that's gonna double the amount of cameras that we have now, but it's gonna be pretty close.
There's a lot.
Yeah, you're talking about adding the 3 and a knee wall too, right, eventually?
Possibly.
Budget consideration, we got that pricing in late fall last year, it wasn't the budget, so we didn't do anything with it.
So maybe, would maybe a strategic plan idea be, let's look at the camera system and how prioritized we wanna do that, and how big we wanna go with it, and where we want with it? Would that be a good spot for that?
I wonder about what the chief just mentioned in terms of businesses in the surrounding area contributing in some way. I wonder about doing public-private cooperation, yeah, around this issue, if that's a possibility.
As far as using the existing, as the chief suggested, I think possible using existing cameras from private systems where they voluntarily share their data with us.
Or that we would potentially install in the Deep Street lot cameras that would be used by local police, but then also maintained perhaps by private business owners. Or for example, the Deep Street lots, the owner of the apartment building.
Have to look into that, as far as them having access to the same feed,
Right.
or just the fact that they are there and the police are monitoring them. Or are you saying perhaps they monetarily contribute?
Yes, there would be coordination between the two.
Talking about, my understanding is the mayor, I'm not sure if we discussed with the DC Blocks Management, they don't have any plans to install more of their own, right? Exactly in conversations.
I don't really know where to go with this, other than maybe have the council weigh in on it, or a strategic meeting, and see if they want this as a priority, and
Yeah, I look at this as public safety, and it's specific to downtown. So in the strategic planning discussion, we're looking at downtown, is that a priority? And what parts of downtown is a priority, is public safety downtown a priority? Then ask the chiefs, and the police chief, we're talking about this, that what is the best strategy to increasing or improving the sense of public safety in downtown? If adding cameras is one of those things, then I think that might be something we recommend. If it's something else, that can be discussed at that time. I don't know, chief, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've lived this long without them, we don't have to have them. But I do think that they provide some sense of security and comfort for people that live in the downtown area.
And I'll also point out that it's an opportunity in terms of thinking about the strategic plan to review opportunities for public-private cooperation. There's another word I want to use, but it's not coming to mind. Cooperation is close.
The one that comes to my mind is partnership.
Yeah, partnership, yes.
So I guess we'll just see if we can bring it up at our strategic meeting when we have it. I think that's probably the, let 5 other people weigh in on too.
I think we could, however, potentially offer a recommendation in the discussion as a committee.
I think I would recommend it. I mean, I don't know what go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off, go ahead.
No, you didn't. I was saying that as a committee, we could say, we recommend for purposes of public safety, after discussion with the chief of police, that we've had an ongoing discussion about the use of security cameras and surveillance more generally.
Okay.
And that this is a priority for our community.
If I don't take notes, I'll forget everything. Okay, so we're gonna have as part of the strategic plan a recommendation that from this committee, we favor it after talking to the chief of police. Very persuasive.
I mean, I'd love to see them in the Wall Street lot too. I mean, it's, you know, the cameras are valuable. Had we had them in the Wall Street lot, then the murder we had on Deep Street probably would have been solved a lot faster also. We had some limited footage from other places, but, you know, that was an area where they left on foot and we would have potentially had good fish. You had a very good idea of their direction of travel much earlier than we did.
No, I'm a fan.
Me too.
So.
Cameras everywhere.
Are you leaving real quick or go down through? Because I got something that was brought up to me towards the end and it's not on the agenda.
I'm here.
What are you doing now?
We're gonna go to our speed study update.
No, I'm saying, if you want the chief here, you could ask him that part now.
Well, it's gonna go with our parking discussion with the non-F.
Okay, whatever you want, yeah.
Speed study update.
So Chris Monroe had updated the map that was shared. All the data that we have collected so far is represented on there, and you see how the notation works.
I think the one, we had someone question Galt Ave, so we had them going.
I did,
Oh, you did?
yes.
So, I believe the 85th percentile was around 20 miles per hour.
I can't,
You have it on?
Wi-Fi, so everything's closing as I try to look at it. Does anyone have it printed?
TV.
Is that behind? Behind you?
My glasses.
Another, oh yeah,
It's in between screens.
oh yeah, no, this is great.
Are you able to zoom in?
So it was 80, in the 80 percentile, people were going about 20, they were following the speed limit on Galt.
Yep.
I had a resident email about it, she was very concerned about it, so thank you.
Sure.
It was really helpful, so I can tell her.
Can you see it? It's the blue.
Doesn't give me the little hand do, so I can't.
The little Hindu.
There's a,
Galt, does it say 19/11?
1911.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there it is, yeah, I forgot, yeah.
I know they're around 20.
I think somebody was going the wrong way.
Yeah. that's one way.
Maybe there is a problem.
So the 85th percentile within reason, I mean, there were outliers, but in general. Do you want to speak to that, chief?
Well, 85th percentile, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think 85th percentile is the speed at which 85% of your drivers are driving. And that's generally recognized by National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that if the speed is higher than the posted speed limit, the consideration is raising the speed limit in a lot of cases. So, you know, as you see there, it's all under, almost all of them are under under 30 miles an hour. Yes, you have outliers, you have people that will speed occasionally down the roadways. But they're so random and so few, especially for the extreme speeds, very difficult to pin down exactly where they are. Now, there's some work that we've done to try to isolate times and volume for speed. Most of the speeds that you see are not during regular traffic hours because they're what they call tailing speed. Right, where they have one vehicle's gotta go behind another vehicle that's going the same, or trailing speed. Tailing or trailing. But when they break down the statistics, most of them fall within that 85th percentile.
Another way to say what the chief said is if the way that road is designed right now, it would suggest that an appropriate speed limit would be 20 miles per hour. The city has no ability to set speed limits of 20 miles per hour on that road, but that's what that data would suggest. So if that was a 35, as in the case of over on West Street in the top left corner, that would suggest an appropriate speed limit for that road is 35 miles an hour.
It's the speed at which 85% of the drivers feel comfortable driving, right? So if you see a speed limit like on Gulf is low
Yeah.
because it's narrow,
Yes.
they would feel comfortable driving that speed, right? But if you look at West Streets, they're obviously, same thing with Chestnut, because it's higher also.
People go back.
You can see 35, 36, that's the 85th percentile.
Right.
So
The design of the street impacts
right.
the speed at which people go.
Right, your
Yes.
conclusion wouldn't be on Chestnut Street, if we want to lower speeds, to lower the speed limit. That would accomplish nothing other than creating more non-compliance with the speed limit. It wouldn't probably change those. Now, if you went back, changed the speed limit, went back, redid the speed study, it'd probably change a little bit, but not that significantly. You have to do something with the design of the street. Unless you have a police car out there enforcing all the time, regularly, where people know to slow down, which is impossible. The impetus for the whole study, was to look at citywide to see if we can change the citywide speed limit to be 25 miles per hour instead of 30 miles per hour. That's allowable for New York State law now. We need to do an engineering study such as this. This is part of it. To be able to justify that, obviously on certain streets like Chestnut Street, West Street, we wouldn't be proposing changing that to 25. That would be not justifiable from an engineering perspective, and therefore would create liability for the city if you were to change it without justification. But those high speeds in areas where we'd like to see lower traffic speeds might feed into strategically when we're looking to reconstruct those roads, how we reconstruct them in a way, or maybe it's not reconstruction, maybe it's some other change, to change the design in a way that's going to encourage lower speeds. So like she said, narrower road, tighter, you're closer to parked cars, trees, people, raised crosswalks, those types of things are things that would actually change the design in a way that might impact the speeds. But those changes, to make those, you want to do some kind of a study as well to.
So what is, I was just gonna ask, so what overall is the picture that the city takes away in terms of being able to reduce the speed in the city generally?
When you look through this, most of them are below 25 miles per hour, that 85th percentile. Most of these side streets, the only exceptions were Chestnut River, portions of River, maybe the whole thing, and West Street so far. You can scroll around and have a look, yeah.
Certainly the side streets could be 25
Yeah.
so far.
Currently, the standard is 30, like side streets, the 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, if it's not, unless otherwise posted, every street in the city is 30. And the state changed the state law last summer that allows municipalities with an engineering study to justify it, that they can change their citywide limit to 25, if it's justified. So if we were to get to that point and change our citywide speed limit to 25 miles an hour, we'd have those posted at each of the city entrances, and then you wouldn't have to post that elsewhere unless it's something other than 25, like 30 or 35.
And what's the rationale for reducing it by 5 miles an hour?
To reflect reality, I suppose.
Also,
That's a good point, though, honestly, you know, as I just explained, you're not really, by changing the limit, you're not really changing, actions by people. However, by having a lower limit, enforcement, you know, you enforce that limit instead of 30.
Mm-hmm.
Does a lower speed lower pedestrian
Lower
accidents?
Actual lower speeds, yeah. Lower speed limits, not necessarily.
Ah,
But lower speeds, that's the impetus behind it, even though in action, you need to make physical changes to change speeds significantly, but having a car impact a pedestrian at 20 miles per hour versus 25 versus 30 versus 35, just the likelihood of fatality or serious injury is like a exponential curve.
Have we had a lot of people being hit by cars?
I wouldn't say we have a lot, we have had some, there have been some fatalities in my time here, the roundabout project.
But it's not a big problem as far as I know, is it?
I'd have to look at the data to see how it compares to other places, like, you know, fatalities per million or 100,000, however they measure it.
Like there were a few spots that I think were a little, I don't know what the word is, uncomfortable, maybe. I did like the curve on Chestnut Street by the diner there, that's you know, because if you're backing out of the diner parking lot, it's, but I haven't seen any accidents there, but I'm sure there have been, I guess, but.
I mean, the pedestrian fatalities I can think of, Chestnut and Maine, within the last 10 years, Maine and on Lettuce Highway, several hundred feet
Both ways.
from Main Street, south side, not the city.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about other impacts. I know of at least 2 that were not fatalities, that were people that I know, the same person who was hit a couple of times.
You're not paying attention.
I'm talking about, Gary. I don't know, I think it's, yeah.
When you said Main and Lettuce Highway, that's where this traffic circle is gonna be? Yeah, that's it. I don't know that the traffic circle will help or hurt, but something's being done.
according to a constituent of mine, absolutely will not, but she's also
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, a constituent of mine is vehemently against the traffic circle and has, let
Yeah, I
me know
don't
that
like
it's
it
dangerous to
myself.
pedestrians. I'm not aware of any.
The one takeaway from a traffic circle is everybody's driving in the same direction.
Right.
So that said, we're not crossing paths and creating conditions where there's gonna be a T-bone accident, which we see quite frequently in that intersection. It reduces the complication for like arrows, and people get confused and they just decide to go straight when that green arrow comes on, and I thought they had the green, and so having everybody go in the same direction is probably gonna be a big benefit to us.
As long as they don't panic, because you go around in a circle and come back around.
So you just keep going.
Yeah, it's being
She-
replaced by people yelling and screaming, where
In her defense, she's very concerned as a walker, as a pedestrian.
Right.
So she
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
speaking about, the driving experience, it was more as a pedestrian. I just wanted to, ask about, for those that are familiar with the study, about East Street, because I have constituents that complain all the time about the speed on East. By the high school and then going up towards, the SUNY campus. So I was just curious, there is a speed radar
We haven't
sign
gotten to
there.
that upper portion, that doesn't look like yet.
Okay,
Yeah, both between Mary and Graduate still needs to be done, and between Graduate and Bugby need to be done.
uh-huh. East Street specifically is where people are very concerned about. So there's just complaints all the time about the speed right here from residents.
That's an area that typically, if we have the opportunity to do speed enforcement, we end up there.
Mhm.
But, in recent memory, like the only accident that I know of was about 2 years ago, and it was at the intersection of Bugby and East, and it was a person coming off Bugby that hit a car on East Street.
Mhm.
Probably more vehicle deer accidents on that stretch of East Street.
A lot more vehicle deer accidents. But yeah, as far as accident goes, I'd have to look, but that's not a, for an accident on East Street, I would be surprised. This is a low incidence area.
Okay, well, I'll mention that to them, to reassure, because they do get concerned that their houses are very close. I've mentioned this in this committee meeting before, that people are concerned about the proximity of their house to the road and the speed at which people cross.
Did they also ask about sidewalks on that stretch? I'm curious, because we've heard that request in the past, both on Bugby and East Street up there where it ends.
I made the, I don't wanna say it's a mistake, but I made, what I thought was a very proud, statement to a resident who lives directly in front of the portion of East that does not have a sidewalk, that the city was actually planning on putting in a sidewalk, and he was vehemently against it. And I say vehemently again, because he really was quite adamant that it should not be included, even though I said, but the children will need a place to walk, through this area, and he still was quite adamant against it, so.
So
Is that between
the complaint,
Sorry.
the complaint was about the speed on East Street?
So, yes, this resident also had a complaint about the speed. And I pointed out that there is a relationship between people in their cars and speed, and so a sidewalk provides an opportunity for people to not be in their car,
Right,
therefore maybe not having the speed, the need to be in a car and speed. So, he was also concerned because there's the infrastructure below the street that includes pipes, and the residents would be responsible if anything should go wrong. And so he was quite concerned that the sidewalk, the residents would have to be the ones responsible for digging up the sidewalk and dealing with the pipes, and NYSEG had put down.
there's
Gas
new
pipe
pipes
there.
along there, they
Exactly.
chopped up the street.
Yeah, so that was his concern, even though I pointed out that for the safety of the children in the neighborhood, the sidewalks are a good thing.
Well, tell them that we're not gonna fix the potholes anymore, and that'll slow down traffic.
Yes.
Is anything else for the speed study? Please, okay. Comprehensive plan update, funding opportunity, and I have no idea what NYSDOS, is that Department of State? Hey!
I have an idea, yes. New York State Farm State, so the CFA, which is the Consolidated Funding Application, which is as the name implies, funding application for a number of different grant opportunities the state puts out in the summer. It's out now, it's the responses are due back in July, which is typical. The particular funding opportunity from New York State Farm State is, what is the name of the actual grants? It is the Smart Growth Program, Community Planning and Zoning Grant Program. We're programming that twice. And one of the things that we could get funded is a comprehensive plan update. That's something we last updated in 2019. Something we discussed in one of our discussions about strategic planning. Stephen had talked about and Judy, I believe, had talked about the comprehensive planning process, and that about now might be a good time to consider applying for something like this, funding to update that. The CFA applications, again, they're due in July, I forget if it's end of July or mid-July. They typically awards are not announced until usually around December. And then by the time we have a grant agreement in place and the project gets underway, it would be 2025. So it's an opportunity for funding for a project that would occur in 2025, and it might be a project that takes probably over a year, 12 to 18 months to complete once it gets underway. As Stephen had presented on, the comprehensive planning process is very community driven, so this is not a city staff and council driven process. So the staff and the consultant would hire would lead the engagement process, but it's very much about getting community engagement. Hearing directly from the community members what they think the city should be focusing on, what priorities should be at a very high level. And that sort of becomes, when it's adopted by the council, the comprehensive plan becomes a guiding document for the council for the next period of years until it's updated again. So I see this feeding into the strategic plan, and it's all interconnected. So what community priorities are, and then the council has to really prioritize it even further than that, or slightly more granular. So we would like to bring a motion to council to see authorization to apply to this grant. There's a 10% match required. The grant does not have a limit to it. If you apply for it, we would craft a motion to say up to $150,000. We would narrow down as we work with our grant writing consultant to determine what an appropriate amount. It'd be probably somewhere between 100 and 150,000 that we'd actually apply for. And then the city would be, if we were awarded, on the hook for 10% of that. So $150,000, $50,000. Given this expense wouldn't begin to incur until 2025, it would be something we would just budget for in the 2025 process. And this is assuming that we would get funded, we might not. And again, we wouldn't find out until December, most likely of this year, sometime later. That was the overview of that.
So it would be an opportunity for the city to receive state funds to update the comprehensive plan through direct community engagement.
Right. If we're funded, we would do an RFP process, RFP, hire a consultant that does planning processing like that. They would assist us with all that community engagement, crafting the actual plan.
And so you're asking for us to just send this up to the council for
I put a motion on the agenda to approve the application for this grant for up to $150,000 with a 10% local match not to exceed $15,000.
And this is to upgrade the strategic plan,
Update the comprehensive.
the comprehensive plan.
It was
Does it cost that much to do that?
it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of money.
Well, it's also a lot of time and effort to put into it, to do it right. Yeah, I would say pass it up, but I would put it, if possible, I would put it in discussion, because I have a feeling that's gonna get pulled. I think so many people have questions and stuff, so I'll just put it in discussion for if possible, or whatever.
That's fine with me.
Just a quick question about comprehensive plans more generally. Are they updated every half decade, every decade? What is sort of the tradition?
5 to 10 years. The last time we updated in 2019, before that, it was 2007, so it was longer than 10 years. Then they started the process. It was sooner, but when you look at our current comprehensive plan, a lot of it's focused on GRI projects. I feel like it's reasonable that every 5 years or so, and the way it works out is almost every council election cycle, you kind of have sometime in that period, that council will have an opportunity to oversee that process. It kind of makes sense from that perspective.
I was gonna say the difference between 2019 and 2025, when you would presumably start this revisiting comprehensive plan, is the pandemic just put these seismic in terms of people's understanding of what city services were provided and what needs to be done post-pandemic.
You okay to move that up to council?
Yeah.
Good move. Good. Local waterfront revitalization plan update.
Okay, that's some notes here that she provided. She was unable to attend, but let's read them. She was, said we were scheduling 2 design charrette meetings in June for this project.
What's the project?
The local waterfront revitalization plan.
Which is what?
Are you familiar with that?
No,
Okay, did you attend, you didn't attend the bus tour by chance, did you?
no,
That wasn't something.
I didn't, that's before my time.
Okay, so this was something that essentially the city applied for with the town's financial support. We're splitting the cost and the planning team that's been put together is split between town and city residents and stakeholders. And ultimately, the city and the town will both be adopting a local waterfront revitalization plan, which is sort of an overlay district of sorts where you establish an actual boundary, and it's not necessarily the city and town boundaries. There's a boundary that's been, a draft boundary that's been established for this, that I can send around. I don't have that.
But what are we gonna do?
Well, that's part of this planning process. So the idea of local waterfront revitalization, Susquehanna River, Leon Creek, what's the creek in the town that are going up? Do you remember, Chris, off the top of your head, on the west end?
It's not
I know,
It's not Holyoke.
I know what you mean.
No, I don't think so. Is it? Anyway.
So
I know the water, yeah.
Okay.
Silver? Silver?
Silver Creek's in the city.
And so,
It's the one on the west by Greater Plains. Anyway, so the idea is you identify what are ways we can revitalize the waterfront. So we have, obviously, in the city side, I-88 isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so that's kind of blocking access there. But the town side does have a lot more access. We also have New Islands. The Greenway Committee has talked about, trails potentially connecting from Fortin Park all the way to Silas Lane where the Greenway Trail is now. Other things we talked about on Leon Creek, which goes up to the reservoirs, having more or better access, pedestrian and bike access all the way up through there. Really trying to build on the biking community as well as, there's people who use trails and Leon Network visitors. So the plan itself will identify certain projects or priorities, and I think the projects can be updated periodically over time, just like any master plan, like a park master plan. The park master plan and Wilbur Park, Nemo Park are both in the boundary of the proposed boundary for this, so any projects that are part of those parks master plans, such as
But basically,
sidewalks.
it comes down to increasing access to the river and streams.
Yeah,
Okay,
increasing public access,
to
better
the,
utilization.
because we don't have much on the river.
Right, but obviously our residents get access from the town just as easily, they can walk across or drive across and get just as much use from there being public access from the town's side of the river as.
Right, so where would that be? The
That's-
proposals?
That's kind of being determined through this process, so I think the idea or the purpose of these charrettes, these design charrettes are to get public input and also other stakeholders, they're identifying certain stakeholders. This committee will be invited to attend the June 13th stakeholder charrette. That's gonna be at Town Hall, and it's 3:35 p.m. So I think at that meeting, the consultant will be there, the Waterfront Advisory Committee, which are the members that are kind of driving this process, they'll be there to talk about what they've done so far, what their thoughts and ideas and plans are, and get your feedback.
Right, I'm thinking that, like, access to the Susquehanna, I can't think of any really nice places where you can actually go that, other than maybe New Island. And, like along the south side of the town, along the commercial strip, if it could be made into like a pedestrian walkway or something, that would be nice. Probably, that would be the thing that would attract the most people.
you said 3:30?
3:30, yeah, June 13th.
So,
Town Hall,
so that somebody's studying this now?
the city and the town. So we have a
How much
consultant.
is that costing?
That we got a grant for, I do not have that off the top of my head, it was just under $100,000, I think. 90.
I'm just amazed that all of these studies cost so much.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, not obviously, but the goal of this is to implement these plans. And then any development that's done in these areas has to sort of take into account, these plans. And then it also opens up the opportunity, it makes it more likely that the city and town can obtain funding through other state grants to implement some of these projects. So if it's a pathway or boat launch, whatever.
Well, it'd be nice if we can have more access, that'd be nice.
I just wonder about also providing an update to the environmental board about this plan, is that?
I can check with Judy on that, to see if, I'm not sure if someone from the environmental board is on the waterfront advisory committee or not.
Just something to think of.
Great.
Yes,
Was it the Otigo Creek? Otigo?
that might be it.
I think that's it, yeah, I just looked it up.
The one that happens in the park farm there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's LT over.
So, let's see, we're gonna have the notes here, so don't miss anything. So that means to gather input from stakeholders about projects and development they'd like included in the draft plan. Projects included will be eligible for implementation funding in the future. For instance, we are including the Greenway, so the Greenway Trail, the parts that have not been constructed, would be included in that LWRP. Also, everything that's in our Newell Park master plan, our Lower Park master plans, and anything like sidewalk improvements or parking lot, potentially, those things, if they're in our other plans, would be referenced in this and potentially eligible for funding in the future. I think that's all competitive funding, I think it's all through the CFA process that we're talking about. They're gonna have a second charrette, that's intended for public and property owners within the proposed boundary of this waterfront revitalization area. We're gonna send postcards out to all of those property owners to try to solicit their engagement and get some sort of an RSVP as to who might actually attend one of these open houses. That's gonna be at St. James Church on June 24th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. The public will be able to stop in and provide input for what they would like to see.
What's the date?
That's June 24th.
St. James Church, what time?
4:30 to 7 p.m.
What's St. James Church?
The one on corner of Elm and Main.
Oh, nice.
They've got that big sort of gymnasium in the back, I think that's where they're gonna have it.
Thank you.
So this will all go out on our social media, I'm sure. So yeah, you guys, I think, obviously can go to either one of them, but on June 13th is specifically when they wanted to click numbers, so.
June 13th?
So I think just to talk, get in the weeds a little bit, we have two, I believe, two meetings on June 13th. We have, is that not when we're meeting for the strategic plan? And or also the tour of the water facility, or is that June 3rd?
That's not the 13th.
Okay, that's fine. So I think we have a meeting on the 13th scheduled for the strategic plan discussion. That's the only.
Yeah, that could be an issue. Granted, the June 13th LWRP meeting is at 3:30 to 5. I would think the strategic planning would be after 5.
Be low.
Granted, it would be
Okay.
a lot of meetings.
Just,
The water system tour is the next day, the 14th.
okay.
All good?
And what time is the water system?
So I think it's 3 o'clock.
That's 3 o'clock, meeting at the water treatment plant on East Street, 110 East.
Lots of discussions of water for 2 days.
Let's go to paid parking. With that, there's a question I wanna ask for the chief has us wait here in a couple of minutes. Something that a couple of people brought up was about parking enforcement. Especially parking enforcement, like the 2-hour spots and along those lines on Main Street. And so I was just gonna ask the chief real quick is, I know we have a parking enforcement officer, plus the officers when they are available, but how do you typically do the enforcement on Main Street with the 2-hour parking and how's it been going since we changed all that on Main Street and
I'd have to look at the numbers. I know that, Reese has been out writing tickets for non-compliance for 2-hour parking. I don't know what the numbers look like at this point, though. I can get back to you on that.
okay. Yeah, I just, while you're here, I wanted to bring it up. I knew you probably didn't have the information tonight, but, I mean, because one of the other complaints, and it's just, the complaint I'm just gonna give it to you is they don't seem to see the parking enforcement officer, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, you know, it's one person for the whole city also. And currently I'm working with 18 officers out of 25, which gives me 8 uniforms on the road for 42 shifts a week. And given the other demands on our time, parking kind of ends up falling towards the bottom of the barrel. It's an unfortunate reality, but, you know, we're dealing with matters of public safety over parking.
just, like I said, they raised it to me and I just figured while you're here,
That's the best I can do at this point.
that's fine. It's fine. Understandable.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to put, 2 officers out walking downtown with riders, but I just can't.
Thanks, I know you had to split, so it's,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I do have to run.
And then, so back to paid parking invitation, I know I kind of, you alluded that you wanted to talk to us once, and I think this goes with like maybe the task force that was meeting that hasn't met, and so maybe if, Greg has any updates with that, and so.
I didn't realize there was a task force. I did realize that actually now, I'll take that back. I did realize that, but I remember that it has not met.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you. That it has not met for quite some time. And the conversation, from what I recall of our last discussion on this topic, the conversation around paid parking just kind of fell away, right? In recent history. So,
Yeah, we used to have it, I'm probably gonna botch this, Greg, so you can throw something at me, but we used to have it, and then we kind of phased it out. I don't know why it was phased out, I never asked that type of question, it's trying to make it more inviting, I think, for people to come downtown to park, was one theory behind it, not to have the paid parking. And then, I think it also became a lot of labor intensive, because at those times were like coins and.
Yeah,
yes.
from my perspective, what happened is like I'm supposed to be leading this effort, and around the time our last meeting occurred, about a year ago probably, maybe it was after that, the parking garage issue happened where, we needed to close it and things just kind of snowballed from there, if you will. Essentially it's at the point where we just need to figure out how we're going to implement it and when, and if, how and when. Given it being a priority, I can prioritize that and reach out to the consultant and do the work to come up with what that proposal will be. Ultimately, that's something I think that should be, as we intended originally, be kind of talked through and work through with this task force, which included some downtown business owners, property owners, stakeholders who would have some input on that. Obviously, as Scott alluded to, the general sense from the public and what the public has been communicating to each other is that there is no parking down there, there's issues with that. And I don't think that just suggesting that we're going to implement paid parking without a very clearly well thought out and clearly communicated rationale for that, what the intention is, I think it could go very badly. So I think that's something the task force should kind of work through, and then the intent was to come through this committee to then go through the council what that rollout would be. I mean, this is just my perspective, my understanding of it. The intent was to kind of roll this out with the conclusion of the construction projects downtown. But I mean, there could be a phased approach. We talked about residential and commuter paid parking permits in certain areas. That could be something that potentially we roll out sooner. But I think that's something we just have to get back to that conversation.
What's the purpose of paid parking?
Well, the purpose of paid parking is to properly manage the parking spaces that we have available in a downtown area. So it would make sense to look at the entire downtown as far as all the public spaces, on street and off street. Past instances, there used to be those old parking meters with coins on many of the streets downtown. And some of the lots as well, those went away, and then at some point the city brought back the central meters that were only in a couple of lots. That didn't really work, because if you have paid parking here and then, the same number of steps away you have free parking, then it's really not, you're not managing anything very well there. So I think with paid parking, for instance, Main Street, those are the best spots. That's where you want to park if you're going to Main Street. And there's the fewest of them. So you're more likely to you want to search for a spot and park right in front of Tino's rather than park in the Deep Street parking lot. So if the price to park in front of Tino's is a little bit higher than the price to park in the Wall Street lot or the Deep Street lot, then you're more likely, it's a personal decision. It's a supply and demand. It's what is your desire to partner with Tino's? Are you willing to pay for that? Or if you work at Tino's and you're gonna park there all day and potentially get away, because of our having one parking enforcement officer, maybe you don't get a ticket, maybe you get away with it. Now, you're incentivized by the pricing of the parking to go park in the D Street lot or the 47 Market Street lot, 'cause it's cheaper. Or you can buy, if you work downtown, or if you live downtown, you can buy a parking pass that presumably will be a lot cheaper if you're paying for the whole, and then you're able to park in certain locations. You and Bill take your parking pass and park on Main Street, because we want people to park on Main Street for shorter durations, for lunch, for going to the bookstore, for going to the bank, or whatever their business might be. And then turn over quicker, so that, ideally you price the spaces so that 85% of them are full at the busy times, and that leaves 1 or 2 spaces open. So it's not hard to find a space.
Yeah, I get all of that, but, so if the goal is just to manage the parking spaces, why not just have a parking person, monitor it more and give tickets if you're over the time? It's a whole lot cheaper and won't aggravate so many people, including the businesses downtown.
Well, it might be debatable. I think punitive enforcement and ticketing certainly does aggravate people. And I think that people, when they understand the cost of something, that there is a cost of something, you decide whether you're willing to pay for it. Like, I decide whether to buy
The people that I talk to, if it was a penny or $1,000, they don't want it, and that's my district, my board. And people, the business people, they're definitely against it, and I think it would hurt downtown businesses. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
What I hear from business people is complaints that the spaces on Main Street and Westcott parking lot, Wall Street parking lot are full all the time, and their customers don't have places to park. When that parking is managed, because you have a certain supply of it, and then you have the demand, so if you manage that, so what's happening in the Westcott lot is there are residents who are parking there and not getting ticketed often enough to make it's to incentivize them to go elsewhere.
Right.
That they're taking up spaces that shoppers, diners could use otherwise. So those spaces are now, they have to pay for them to park there as opposed to.
Right. Either way, no matter what we do, there's gonna be people who are unhappy. I think we have to recognize that.
Yeah.
And, but I just think, if you wanna do something that's anti-business and gonna hurt downtown and have paid parking, I don't see how it helps at all.
I think there's a number of books that have been written on how that seems to be the case and ultimately isn't the case. But that's.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, to maybe it gets at your concerns a little bit, is sort of, can we look at what do similar sized cities or municipalities do in this instance? And how have they been successful in either?
Right, if you look at Otsego County, there's only one place that I know of that has it, and that's the summertime in Cooperstown. And it's a unique situation, it doesn't really apply to Oneonta. But people in rural areas, people don't want to pay to park, it's as simple as that. I don't think you have to make it as complicated. And if you live in an urban area, which I also know a lot about, people expect to pay. But here, people don't expect to pay, and if they have to pay, they won't come. That's my opinion. And what's that based on?
But my point is that when you look at these dynamics in very similar sized cities in similar areas, you can get a sense of then how did these cities manage this issue? So what was their response? How did they manage the business community's expectations, the public's expectations, the city's expectations, right? So you get a sense of how these players interact and then ultimately solve the issue. Because it is an issue.
Yeah. And
Parking is an issue.
I think once the replacement of the parking that's gonna replace the parking garage opens up, there'll be adequate parking. Again, it's an opinion, I recognize that. I don't see parking as a problem. What I see as a problem is not enough business downtown. And I think if you have a parking problem, that's a good thing.
So again, to the question of economic development and its relationship to parking, what do other cities do that are similar to us? in terms of how they solved these concerns.
They
So
let
we
people-
would compare, we could do some data collection
Right.
and offer some comparison.
Small towns in upstate New York don't charge parking.
I'd have to see the numbers on that. I'd have to see the data. I mean, I would take your word for it, Don, but I'd also like to see some studies that have been done on it. And to actually talk to people who
Yeah.
work in these cities and to
Oh.
see, you know, what have you done?
Well, the one that I know a little bit about is New Paltz. It's not exactly the same, it's roughly the same size, but because it's in the Hudson Valley, it's a little different. It's a college town. SUNY New Paltz and SUNY Oneonta are roughly the same size. And they have a thriving downtown. They don't have South Side competitor, but they don't charge for parking. The last time I've been there, my daughter Lindy went to school there, and you know, I never had trouble parking and I never paid for it. That's all I got.
So one question you could ask then is, what do they do in New Paltz
What do they do?
in 2024? Right, this was years ago. So what is their,
Well, I was
what does the
there-
local government do
I've been there
around
this year.
generating revenues for, as a revenue stream? If they don't charge parking, what other solutions do they have? So that's an example of a question that you could pose to local government.
Well, so you're saying that we should have paid parking to raise money?
I think it's an absolute revenue stream for the city,
I'm
without
not
doubt.
so sure about, I don't think we're doing this to raise money, is it, right? Are we doing this to raise
Well, I
money?
think that's part of the results. I mean, I think the intent and design of it has to be to manage the parking like I was describing. But obviously, there's a revenue generation there as well, which helps cover the cost of having to pay parking and
So-
enforcing it.
Ned,
Having
Ned,
parking at all.
Ned, what do you think would make?
Well, I think that would make about $500,000 a year. And I would think fully implemented downtown, again, like to your point,
And
we have
based on,
reasons for people to come downtown. So having businesses, having things to come downtown, willing to pay for those things is a key.
where did you get the $500,000 figure?
Driving around, counting how many cars are parked in downtown, like 250 times, and doing some math and figuring out based on what
But my argument is that there'd be a lot fewer cars downtown as a result, because people won't do it.
But it may not mean that people don't come downtown. You're assuming that people only drive. They may find other ways to get downtown.
I don't know what the numbers are, and I wish that were true, but I'm skeptical.
Well, some of the problems that we heard from business owners, the fact that you have residents parking in these last long period of time, we're not getting enforced to get them out of there so other people can get in there.
Right.
That's right.
How do you pay for people? If you're not gonna wanna be punitive with tickets, then the next thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to, because we're only driven by taxes and what fines and penalties we put on people. So then if we're not gonna do a permitting process or whatever, then you wanna be punitive, and the next best is you're gonna have to put in some type of paid parking. I don't know which way, it's not a good situation no matter which way you go, but at some point, we're trying to help alleviate some of the issues that we're hearing about the fact that people are parking long-term and they're not being forced out. And we had that same issue in the parking garage, and that was up, you could go down there and see cars that were parked there 3-4 days straight, never moved because of the amount of pigeon feces on the car. You know, so I mean, it's, you know, so what do we do? I mean, we still have, I don't know, because we have the same argument when it comes to towing vehicles too. Do you really want to tow vehicles and we know into this, or my answer is Oleana's always towed, yes, we tow, it's never been off the table, we tow, but then you're also talking about labor intensive stuff, so.
Well, let's take the Westcott lot for example. So, I can't remember the man's name who owns that building, and there's student parking, student housing above.
Okay, yeah.
And so the students usually park along the building and they leave their car there, right? I've noticed that.
Okay. I'll
And,
take your word for it,
what's that?
I never researched it, so.
Oh, well, I'm nosy, so I
That's
look
all right.
around and, they have their little stickers and stuff, so and they're out of, anyway. So, if I were saying that we had to do something about that, I would say to the landlord, you know, you gotta provide parking for your tenants. That's what my landlord does.
That's kind of about how do you do that when you got the house on Main Street, right downtown, with apartments over top of them. They
I
went
don't
out and they had, say you got 15 people that are driving, you got 15 cars, you have to provide that parking. Where are they gonna provide the parking? You're got,
Well, so, okay, so what is it, in a couple of days, we're gonna have an opening of the Springbrook people, and they're not providing parking for their tenants, and I've talked to them about it, and they don't seem to be overly concerned. So so now it's gonna be a problem, instead of when they first started to design the project, we should have said, hey, what are you gonna do about tenant parking?
so the city was founded in 1908 as a city, but before that it was in the 1800s. We were like a Milfordville, I think is what our title was back then. Main Street has been this way since the 1800s. And since even through all the zoning codes, I haven't ever heard zoning codes sit there and look at anybody that has one of these buildings with apartments over top and saying, you have to provide parking now. I don't know how you do that when this building has been here since the early 1900s, late 1800s.
I don't know either, but, you know, Chip Klugo.
I don't even know
did it.
legally if you can.
No, I don't know either, but, you know, a good landlord will figure that out, like, you know, Klugo did.
Okay, well, we're not gonna sell this tonight, so I
Right.
I don't think it will, again, I think getting all the facts, like you said, I don't think that hurts when you get the facts.
Oh, I won't get the facts.
No, I agree with you too, you're seeing it too, but, and then, I think it's a bigger conversation, I think that's why that task force was put together. Because I think this is some of the same battles I think I heard in a couple of their task force meetings, was how do we do this, if we did this.
Well,
Yeah.
so being new at this, so when you're weighing what the business people tell me who are in the ward and the residents are telling me who are in the ward versus the bigger picture of the city might get $500,000, you know, how do I weigh those two factors?
Well, because we're trying to enforce the 2 hour, this was brought up with like really with the 2 hour parking and paid parking because like Greg said, the prime spots are in front of their stores. People want those prime spots to be in there. How do you enforce that? Well, there's two ways. You have paid parking or you have tickets. And if you're gonna ticket, and they're still gonna be there because the ticket's no longer, they don't take that ticket seriously, you gotta have to pull that vehicle out of there. Those are your three options. I mean, we're trying to, that's what we hear from them is there's no parking in front of their store. And I'm saying in front of their store. I'm not saying there's no parking on Main Street. I'm saying in front of their store
Well, and
where it's convenient. So-
it's not gonna happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But, so, I mean, I'm trying to answer your question, Don, is those are really the only options you do. Right? I mean, we're trying to help the business owner out. I mean, I've gotten phone calls that said that you as a council have created this issue. And now how are you gonna deal with this? Because now I'm closing my business up, or this business is
How do
leaving,
we
this
create
is.
it?
Because we closed the parking garage, we took the parking garage down.
Yeah.
By some of our other stuff, when we changed the parking zoning, hours and this and that.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, when Main Street got redesigned, when we talked to some of the older people that lived here for a long time, that this is the worst design we've ever seen, how do you design this like this? Because you used to have ample parking on the back before you brought all these sidewalks out, had all these out curves. I can't change the past. I didn't sit here back in the 70s and 80s and 90s when they did this. I'm like 5 years into this. I can only deal with what's in front of us now. So how do we best help them? Well, we did the 2 hour parking. That's what we heard. That's what they wanted. Because you can't get up and down Main Street. You can't get in a restaurant. You can't sit there for any, you know, it's about 2 hours is what we heard. And most of Main Street right now is really dying, if you look. I mean, there's not so 2 hours to me seem reasonable, so we're trying to help out. Not everybody gets helped out with that. You know, I know I hear that on average between 30 to, businesses are down between 30 to 50%.
From when?
this is just what they tell me. I never asked what they do with it.
Pre-pandemic, maybe, 2019 to 2024, something like that, maybe,
Mhm.
yeah,
Their overall sales.
yeah.
And some of them really took a hit about 10 to 15%, maybe 20% when you closed the parking garage, because you took out that ease
Yeah.
from getting in and out of going across or whatever.
Mhm.
So that's what I hear when talking to people that I've been friends with and stuff that do own businesses.
Right, if you don't have parking, business will go down.
So when you talk to them, so when I tell, it's like, well, what can we do? Well, you gotta enforce a 2-hour requirement. Okay. I think we do, as the chief just said, we got one parking enforcement officer who's not that's not 100% parking, because they also do ordinance, right, for codes. So they might be on the others doing something in codes before they come back and do more parking. Maybe we have to revisit that, I don't know, but, so to kind of answer that, I don't know, those are the only 3 options that, it's paid parking, it's ticket, it's tow, because you have to enforce those. Also, the taxpayers, the 47% that are paying, you know, and I know Jenny will kind of argue the numbers a little bit, but more or less, the ones that are paying for taxes and stuff are footing the bill for all these parking lots, to maintain the parking lots, and stuff like that. So why not have the city in a position where we don't have to put so much money in the budget, because we're gonna go, because we might be sitting there saying, well, we can't get you two police officers this year, because we really gotta pay this parking lot. You know what I mean? I mean, that's, I don't know. I don't know, Don, it's gonna be a hard decision, I mean, we're not gonna solve it tonight.
If we actually made $500,000, that's good, that's a strong argument. You know, who can argue with a
It's a
$500,000?
strong argument. Absolutely.
I'm very skeptical of that, and I do think that given what rural people expect, they don't, you know, they all go to South Side, they don't charge me anything. I go to Walmart, they got a lot of stuff for sale in there, and they got a big parking lot with, some of them have big holes, but I don't get around
I don't disagree with that, but if you really go out, now here's the thing, everybody says, you know, they get so close to Walmart. When you get out of your vehicle, you look at Walmart, here's this big facade, they make the building big for a reason, because it makes it look like you're close. Now, when you walk out of there and you look for your car, you really realize how far away you are.
It's perception, that's
Yes.
perception.
So it's
They
no
think it's
different
right,
than
they
if you
think
park
they can
in
right, you're
D
right
Street and
there.
come down, or Wall Street and
It's
come
the
down.
same, yeah.
It's just the perception's different because of the way they build the building. And that's when you go into a supermarket. Why do they keep rearranging a supermarket? Perception is, it's how to get that shopper to that product, to where they wanna be.
Yeah.
Don, do you remember the lecture that Steve Yearly gave at the town hall, the forum?
I do.
Remember he detailed the ways in which, since the 1960s, with urban renewal and then the development of shopping malls outside of urban centers, you've had a complete reconfiguration of space. And so people don't see space in the way that they did a century ago. So the urban experience is really now the Walmart experience.
And now we're switching to a lot of people are doing, here's it, you got a lot of things since the pandemic. You got a lot of people that wanna shop online. They get it delivered to their house, where they go in and they get it, you know, you go into that little pickup zone. I do this at BJ's, I go in, cause I spend too much money when I go in the stores. I park in the BJ's, they bring it out to me, so I don't have to go in the store. That way I don't get in trouble when I get home and I got a truck full of stuff. But,
Fair
so, you know, that's the new shopping. I mean, the kids up at, the students up at schools, they're Amazon shopping. They're not coming down, taking the bus to come downtown. They're
Yeah,
not into the party zone, they're not into a lot of this other stuff. They Amazon shop, they stay on campus.
they even get their weed delivered.
This is all stuff we're fighting, this is all stuff, and I don't, you know, this is, I mean, it's a great discussion, but I don't,
Well, it's economic development,
it's,
right?
Yeah.
So that's the
you got
topic that we have to tackle.
And here's what's great about the municipality that we're in, between the city and the two colleges, everybody's fighting to get people there. We're all trying to fight to get people here.
Right.
And then the city's got a little extra fight trying to, how do we keep them here?
You talk about permanent residents.
Students, yes,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, the answer, I know the answer to that last question, and that is, the students want a job when they graduate college, they have to pay that student debt, and I was talking to a student today, he's got $37,000 and he's freaking out.
He's freaking, I mean,
Yeah,
as a parent, I'm freaking out having someone.
my friend Ken Cormier is really worried about it.
So, all right, I think we should probably move on, I don't think we're gonna go too much further, I just, it's nice to hear that the task force is actually trying to get towards.
that was my question. Are you reconvening?
We can reconvene, yes.
Okay.
So obviously Emily had been on the task force before, so Don, would you like to be included in that? Scott was on it.
Sure.
To 8-4/6-4 downtown. And there's no reason you couldn't, necessarily everyone have the whole clique be invited, I mean, you obviously interested, so
Yeah.
I'll include you all when we regroup that.
Okay,
Sure.
and so what is the task force, what's the goal?
To determine how best to manage parking, particularly downtown. I mean, it had an eye on paid parking, but that's a discussion, how best do you manage that?
Tire slashing is not on the agenda?
Tire slashing, that would help. But we can talk about
I guess, I
But
think,
Don, I just want to point out that Scott illustrated, I thought, really well the point that Greg made about management. He's very
I remember
specific
it
about
very well.
all of the ways in which the city must manage, examples of management. that the
Right, and
city
he was talking
practices.
about having people, I forget, was it 10-minute walking?
Yes.
Was it 10, what was it, 15
15
minutes?
minute city.
15 minute,
Yes.
yeah, 15
Yes.
minute city.
Yes, 15 minutes.
Which is more likely to happen in an urban area than in a rural area. And we're a small town in a rural area, and people are accustomed to, pulling up in front of where they want to be and getting out and doing whatever they're there to do.
I see that, not to keep the conversation going, but Oleana is a weird place in that we're a very small city, but we do have an urban character. It's a small one, but to ignore that and treat it as though it's rural, I think is kind of what was done 50 years ago, the urban renewal era, and that didn't really work out. I think the evidence shows, Oleana is not, that's self in 2024, and we have a lot of parking available, even with the garage being gone. So let's talk about how we best manage that. And I think it's kind of a mixture of both. We have a bus system that we have a lot of these urban amenities. We're not an entirely rural place. And if we are preferring to have a downtown that is driver friendly and driver centric, that's kind of reversal of the direction we started heading in, and heading back toward where I think the model, the idea was in the 70s, that I would say didn't work out very well for the downtown. But if that's the case, then we need to talk about how else we fund that, because the parking garage was there and was built and was funded with, but didn't have the revenue generation other than the tax base, which obviously did not keep up with the need to maintain that, not to mention hiring police officers and everything else. So if you add back in, as to Scott's point, how do you pay for parking lots? If you add back in a parking garage and more parking and make it very parking centric, first question is that gonna work? Because you're trying to compete with Southside, which you can't compete with, you can differentiate from. I think downtown's very different from Southside, and that's why people still come here, even though it's easier to park at Hannaford or Walmart or the mall. But the other thing is, how do you pay for it if you're not collecting parking revenue, and you're providing a lot of parking? I think then it's taxpayers that you gotta ask them to pay more to cover that, or else it, ends up in poor condition, not well maintained, and all that.
I think the best thing Oleana can do is focus what we're good at and being true to what Oleana is. And that's, we are a multitude of identities. And that's something to be proud of, that a lot of cities don't have, and they don't capitalize on. And I think that's really what we have to start focusing on to move us forward, and that's the draw to get people here. my soapbox.
Don't trip.
Your proposal for economic development.
Brush and yard waste program. So this was put on because I had a constituent, I don't know, Righties as the chair of this, who is, from the way I took the email, is a little, probably more on the elderly side. I said shared with you, Chris, I think, and I think Gray was on it. Where they used to get brush pickup twice in a month versus once. And they're saying once isn't enough, and by the time you get the bags down there, after they sit, they rip and fall apart, and, you know, would really like to consider us going back to twice a month. And I said, well, we'll discuss this at the quality of life. Infrastructure committee just, I mean, this is something that, you know, we've kicked around, it's been talked about even years before Chris and Greg sat here, of our previous city managers, and doing away with the program completely. We've also discussed doing a tag and stuff like that, where you pay for it, put them on the curbs, you're pretty much paying for it, and the city gets revenue by that, and they would take care of it. I think we have scaled it back a little. I think it was twice a month.
Not in my time.
No.
Here, when I first started, it was haphazard. It was DPW supervisor would send trucks out whenever it looked as though there were a lot of acts around the city. Say, okay, go do 1, 2, 3, 4. It was not systematic as it is now. And at one point, there were some different iterations. At one point, they tried to by appointment system, so it was call when you had bags to pick up, and then we'll schedule people, but that was a nightmare. It didn't really last very long, and then we implemented the once per month basically. So I don't think that we did twice per month since I've been here.
I know once, I think it was the Parks guys came out and grabbed them at one point.
Yeah.
It got real cumbersome, I remember that. So,
Is it year round? Because really you only need it in the fall and the spring, right?
April, mid-April, we started in April through November, and then January, we go around for 1 week and pick up like Christmas trees and whatever else on the out. And if there's a storm, we'll go around a special time to collect the storm debris after a big storm that knocks limbs down. But the brush picking, the only time we do it twice per month is in November, I believe. We do a lot of leaves, trying to get everything before the end of the year.
So I mean, I brought it on here because, I mean, if we're gonna, these are my hesitations, I don't know what you guys feel. If we completely did away with the program, I think it's gonna make the city like, I think it would be behind the 8 ball. I think you'd have stuff just piled up all over the place. Once a month, I think we're kind of sort of keeping up with it. Twice a month, we just don't have the manpower for it. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong, I don't work with DPW, I just know how short they are with all the other projects going on. The one thing that I have that I know the one council meeting kind of got on Greg a little bit about was the implement of whatever system to make sure to get the gate, so you can scan in or whatever, the gate opens up and you can drop stuff off. This particular person doesn't have a vehicle, so it has to rely on the city. And I just think it, the hours are kind of, there's no weekend hours. Most people do their stuff on weekends. I don't have
The drop off has no weekend hours?
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's Monday through Friday, and I think it stops at 4, I think the sign says. Or it could be 3.
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. A lot of people don't get done until 4 or 5 o'clock. Most people are at work by the time it opens up.
So we did have a dumpster on the weekends, but it was significantly abused by contractors that were dumping off material. Once the bins were full, they were leaving logs and debris outside the bins, which required DPW to pick it up on Monday mornings, every single Monday morning. There wasn't a Monday that it didn't happen, a weekend that it didn't happen. brushing yard pickup now, we have 1 vehicle and 2 people devoted to picking up material every single day for an entire week. So that's the crew is devoted to it. If you wanted to do it twice a month, that would be, I don't know, maybe do it 3 days at the beginning of the month, 3 days middle of the month, split up that week. Could do that. So it'd be 6 days instead of 5 days. Ultimately, Greg and I have been working on scheduling a meeting with Casella, possibly to use their scales to weigh brushing yard waste to come in, and then provide an access point to our dump site. Once they weigh, they pay, they go dump, and then it would be available Casella's hours, which they have weekend hours, Saturdays. Come up with a fee for what it would cost for them to do the administration, a fee for us because we grind the material at the end of the year, once or twice a year. So Greg and I have been talking about that as a possibility versus putting in a gate and swipe system. Still requires a lot of discussion with Casella.
That would be everybody would pay.
Yep.
See, I'll pay for that too. There's no perfect system,
It's one of those things that it makes sense to have a fee, a user fee for the people that use it. Because you're gonna say residents, property owners who are paying their taxes, who are paying for this program, just like parking, that don't have a yard or don't have any brushing yard waste to drop off or put on the curb, so they're paying for me and you to put our brush out there if we have. So it's something that can be quantified. Can have a fee associated with it. It would be more administration in a sense, but we would figure out the most efficient way to do it, if you would cover the cost of that. It's just another way to generate revenue from someone that we're already providing.
The other thing is the town's interested in participating, so their residents would potentially be part of this. And we're also considering allowing contractors, because now we'll be able to weigh them and have a fee associated with what they'd be bringing in. But right now, we don't allow contractors.
See, I think a fee for this, the yard waste, to me, that makes sense. I wouldn't be opposed to that. It's certainly worth looking into.
That was sort of the consensus in council last fall, when we talked about it, looking into a fee as opposed to eliminating the program. Or we kind of talked about those two options versus current.
And would the fee just cover the cost of the program, or would it be looking to make a profit?
I would think that we would look to cover all the costs associated with it, so we have to calculate the time that it takes to collect and to manage to grind the waste and.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Casella, the county is their transportation, Casella operates it, they're involved, they're gonna have administration costs and administrative costs, so if we cover all of that, that would be the way to justify the fee, and then that's revenue that's offsetting the cost, but right now we're just incurring the cost of the revenue. So I wouldn't call it profit, but I would say it's revenue, whereas right now we're.
That makes perfect sense to me, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we talked about the ticket program, whatever, you put the sticker on it or something like that, you buy a roll of stickers for X amount of dollars. And, I mean, it's nothing different, it's not anything different than like, I think the Hannaford, I use that bottle return Hannaford, where you put the sticker on the bag, or the clink or whatever it's called, you scan it, and you still buy the bags, but the stickers are free,
Yeah.
So.
Very similar to the parking, if you're a contractor, we're gonna allow contractors, I think that fee is a little bit higher. If you're a resident dropping off, have to bring your own yard waste to the transfer station and to our dump site, that fee would be less than the fee if we're picking up. Because it would supply a price point, encourage them if they're able to, and it's easy for them to drop it off themselves as opposed to the currently added cost of us having the equipment and the manpower to go around and take their backs up. We'll have added service. They have options, but you pay a little bit more for something that costs a little bit more. And if that encourages more people to drop off because now the time frames make more sense and now they have to pay for someone to come pick up off the curbside. It's not as though our guys will be sitting around twiddling thumbs. They have plenty of other things that they can be doing if they have less time to spend on picking up their access. And that makes DPW more productive without having to have people.
I mean, I'm not against that, I'm just trying to think about our elderly that may not drive or something like that, they're putting out, how do we help?
Seniors now, yeah, I mean, it's probably,
Or they could hire a contractor to come pick them up for them.
I'm just gonna throw this out here because down in my ward, I got elderly now that are barely hanging on, making hard decisions between medication and food sometimes. So, there's no easy decisions, I just brought it up here because, you know, instead of just trying to do email things, like let's just bring it back up. I mean, I don't know if we can really get away from 1 day a week right now. I don't know if we can put in a second day. I mean, we do it towards the end, during fall cleanup and stuff, we start doing 2 weeks. Because if we go to 2 weeks, what jobs are gonna go to work? Seeing it work, that what I always use is if we're gonna make this a priority, what job are we not gonna get done? I think that's fair to say here, if we're gonna make this a 2 week thing, what job are we not gonna get done that we would normally do in-house? That we wouldn't have to contract out. Am I off base with that, Chris?
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, we basically have to keep 2 vehicles right now for brushing yard waste. And we have 2 employees devoted to it for 40 hours a week each month. So if we took that equipment and could buy something else other than maintaining that equipment, or not buy equipment at all, and put those 2 employees, 40 hours a month, 12 months for 40 hours, that's a good amount of time that we could be building more catch basins, filling in more potholes, building more sidewalks or curbs.
Just one employee, 10 hours, it's what, 480 hours, 12 hours?
Building more storm sewer, cleaning out more catch basins, I mean, there's all kinds of
That's
things.
a lot of hours.
What things you guys see out there that we're not getting done, that you want done?
Well, I know you guys struggle, you tell us that, about your valves, trying to get them turned and don't have enough of that, you want flushing before your hydrants, the Lake River Street we just went through, where we still gotta raise some of those manholes and stuff like that you're trying to do in-house to save money before you can even think about paving it.
ADA tile installations.
I hit one of those manholes on my bike. I hurt my leg.
So,
I did.
I believe I like.
I looked over my shoulder to see if there were any cars, and it was the manhole was like 2 inches lower or something. Lost control. I'm suffering ever since. It's terrible.
Chris, if we did go to 2 weeks, what is that gonna do for your operation?
If we did 2 weeks, I would request that we only did 3 days of that, 2 or 3 days of that 2 weeks. We actually only work 4 10s during a week. So if I could do 2 days, maybe in the beginning, 2 days in the middle. Right now, we pick up the entire week, the week that we do pick up.
Cause it's broken in wards, right? It's like wards 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8.
Yeah. I just request that we not devote more manpower, time. Do the same amount of time, just split it. If we could do that, it's something you'd be willing to entertain. Cause I really don't think we should be putting 80 hours of 2 men to picking up brushing yard waste every single month. That's a lot.
my concern, if you split it up, same amount of time, just twice per month, then do you end up with more bags sitting out there for longer periods of time because we didn't get to them, but they put them out that week?
Yeah. people still get it messed up. I mean, we've been doing this pickup this way for, like you said, before your time, and people still don't get the dates right.
The reason for trying the different experiments with scheduling of this pickup was based on council and the mayor at the time, hearing complaints from residents about there always being bags out and it looks poorly. The city didn't look good because there's always just debris on the sidewalks and curbs, so how do we pick it up? So I just would be concerned that maybe that would become the case again. If we only allow our people to go out for a certain amount of time that we split it to, someone puts it out that first time, we don't get to it now it's there until the next time, which is another 2 weeks away or whatever.
Mhm.
And they get, wet. Probably becomes more difficult on average for people to pick them up from the truck.
Yeah, I've seen our guys out there with shovels shoveling it up because it ripped out. Which is nice, it's very nice of them to see that they care to do that, that's nice to see, but it's also, I feel bad for them because they ripped it out.
Usually after rain.
To put it in money perspective, if you did the calculation of 2 men, 2 employees, 40 hours a week, that's 80 hours a week, times 12, and you did say $40 an hour with, that would include insurances, you're talking about almost $40,000 devoted to just pick up once a week, each month. So if you want to double that, you're looking at $80,000. Just to put it in money perspective.
I mean,
week.
I'll be honest.
And that's not including gas.
Right.
That's just paying for manpower.
Would that take away your sweeping operations? Is one of the manpower on the sweeper, or is just all?
No, it would take away from building a catch basin, resetting a manhole frame and cover, or fixing potholes, that kind of stuff. It wouldn't take away the sweeper.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Greg just said, I mean, one of the things I still hear is the city looks dirty. I don't know how to, especially Main Street. I always hear how Main Street's dirty, and I said, I'm not gonna ask them to send a sweeper up there or clean the sidewalk or whatever. I go, because they don't clean my sidewalk, they don't clean anybody else's sidewalk.
Are they talking about the buildings or
Yeah,
at the
but-
street and sidewalk? Because we clean the streets, Main Street from Chestnut, actually from Fairview all the way to Grand is cleaned once a week. We sweep it, we pressure wash the sidewalk, we clean it all off. And if there's vehicles in the
Human
way,
feces and urine and.
But aren't the property owners responsible for the sidewalk if it's dirty?
They should be. We shouldn't be touching the sidewalks, not even on Main Street.
Right, yeah.
And I'm actually more upset that we touch the sidewalks on Main Street because, we don't do it for anybody else in the city. Why are we doing it for Main Street?
Right. Like our crews clean the tree pits and that kind of thing, but we shouldn't have to do the sidewalk. That should be up to the.
But he just said they're up here power washing the sidewalks and.
they blow everything out to the road and then it's swept up with a sweeper.
Okay.
I really don't think that that's our responsibility to be doing the sidewalks. Thanks.
But that's been done before my time, it's been,
Yeah, I mean, downtown has always had a greater emphasis on maintenance with having public garbage receptacles and recycling, with clearing snow off the curbs when it snows a lot, with cleaning. I mean, we typically haven't cleaned up and down the whole length, all the sidewalk. I mean, when we're going through and we're sweeping stuff in the street, and, pretty much they're probably getting an extra benefit there. But we do have Dollar Plaza in the city here to maintain, but I guess it comes down to what priorities are, and if there's a value to that with downtown being an economic center and people wanting things to look nice. So are we talking about putting more downtown security cameras because that's a concentration of people? We think the public safety benefit downtown is worth investing in. we're not talking about cameras across the whole city. I don't know, I think that's just the perspective I have always gotten from the city since I've worked here.
I think downtown was pretty
Downtown,
clean.
because of the business
I
center.
don't see it as dirty.
That's coming from people in your ward, that's. I can't do anything about human feces, I can't do it, if they're sleeping in there. What I told about the.
Sometimes like a
Store
Friday or
fronts.
Saturday night is, you know, human, people lose their lunch, let's put it that way.
I'm just saying what
But
they
that's,
tell me.
after a night.
It sounds like they're speaking more specifically about maybe a particular population that's around that area.
It
More than
seems
the
like, it
physical
seems like when the
structure.
sun goes down and it's time to go to bed, they sleep in the storefronts
Right.
and.
Right.
I'm not sure today is a proper word, I don't really know how to try to not single anybody out, but our homeless population, I guess.
Unhoused, yeah,
They come out, they sleep in the storefronts and,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
there was a
sleep in the
little of
Mall
that,
Plaza.
you know, and they removed the gazebo out of in front of the library because people were sleeping there, but I don't know. There's still the same number of people are gonna be out, I don't know, taking the gazebo away is a good idea, I don't know.
I think that's part of, I heard that was part of their phase 2 of their park plan. I'm not sure that
Oh,
is something else might be going there, I don't know.
well, there was, you know, during the day and at night, there were, I mean, you know, it's another thing that I look at regularly because, you know, I live there, so, but it's a problem that nobody's ever figured out how to fix, you know.
So I guess back to the topic, even if we switch, even if we did switch, I think it'd get very confusing right now, because you're doing it almost mid pickup. I think if we're gonna switch it, that'd have to be something to switch for next year. And I think that council, I would sit there and probably argue that the council needs to make that decision if they wanna spend $80,000, an extra 40 grand to do it versus what we're doing now.
You wanna read my mind?
Did I read your mind?
Do you want to read my mind? 2 words. Anyone? Strategic planning, another item to discuss.
Yeah.
Broken record, keep breaking.
I was thinking prioritization, but
I thought you were gonna say,
You can say strategic.
I thought you were gonna say be quiet.
So, quick question, about the earlier discussion. Has there been an agreement that the committee would recommend a yard waste fee? Is that something that we
We
have agreed on?
discussed it, but we
We haven't,
never went further with it. We discussed it, we all thought it was a good idea, but it was towards the end of the council term.
I actually meant for our discussion tonight.
Oh,
Are we
for ours.
recommending it? Yeah. As a committee?
I would like to investigate the costs and figure out something that would be appropriate and make a recommendation to you guys.
Yeah, my only thing is I would think like a city resident should be a little less money versus,
Versus the contractor.
yeah,
For example,
yeah.
right, yeah.
Well, it would only be city resident. I mean, if the town were to be using our area to store their, it would be, they'd have to have a similar program for town residents. But we haven't really gotten that far with it.
Right. Like I was just saying, like if you open it up to other, like not the city or the town, like if you open it up to other people, I would
Yeah.
come in and dump, I would think that they should be paying a lot more than what our city residents pay.
That might be an option if there's capacity, you know, maybe a future phase, or maybe, we're not gonna overwhelm with brush, but.
Right.
No, I'm good with investigating it and then coming up.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the Casella idea that you're talking about, but maybe like the bag sticker ideas that we're talking about or something like that, you know. So, yeah. I say we keep it at one right now, strategic planning, like Greg said, and let them investigate the funding, or how they wanna do it. I'm good with that.
So we'll work on that with an eye on the budget process, or do you want to bring it back to click?
Which one?
The brush program, potential fee structure. Seems more like a finance thing in the budget discussion, unless you want to bring it back here, we can.
No, I would be all right. You said on finance, right?
Sorry?
You said you're gonna be sitting on finance, right?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think it'd be always useful to have committee recommendation in our discussions, broader discussions.
Yeah.
So it's maybe worth having one more discussion once there's actual
Yeah.
information to
Yeah.
a plan, a potential plan.
Potential plan, if there's gonna be fees, I think that would have to go to finance, because finance, I'm gonna assume is gonna be turned to fee schedule.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the next, whenever we can.
Yeah.
Maybe not next time, but.
I'm not looking for an answer like next month, Greg, maybe somewhat, maybe closer towards, because it may just end up going right up into the budget discussion.
I know to bring it back when we're ready with the proposal, but also discuss it in the strategic plan.
Yeah, because maybe the council's gonna wanna take it over from there. And I don't think we have anything else. You have anything else? Got anything else?
No.
Alright, Greg, you got anything else?